So tell me, how did this idea come to be?
Yeah, so it came to me. So the initial idea came from a lunch that Sam and Armando had about 7 or 8 years ago. They were looking to work together, and Sam was telling some of his stories about making the Bond films and experiences he'd had, and some of the weirder elements of directing a big movie like that. And Armando just said that'd be a good idea for a TV show. And at that time, franchise movies were everywhere and very successful. So they started to develop the show, and then I came onto it about 3 years ago. In the intervening time, the sort of landscape had shifted a little bit, and franchise movies had gone from being sort of untouchable to starting to hit a tricky patch where things weren't connecting with audiences in the same way. And so the show really is looking at that and trying to understand why that happens, and why do these movies end up the way they do.
And do you have a quick answer to that?
I guess. Well, I guess there's. I guess the machinery that is pretty dysfunctional. That they have many movies but one brain. So there's often a figurehead within a franchise that is a sort of super director, and that is quite a chaotic way to make something, because it means that there's a very thin bottleneck, so everything has to go through one person, which is kind of mad, and I don't know how you would do that without losing your mind, honestly. But then the bigger question, I guess, is like corporate things, so a takeover, and suddenly everyone wants more scale, so you're making 40% more movies all of a sudden, and then that means you need more money, so you chase product placement, or you try and get a release in China, or there's lots of things, right? It's a shifting landscape of forces that are all, and what I like is the idea of all of these forces coming down to bear on the people who are right at the bottom of the food chain. So there's, on this movie set, above the line and below the line, there's the above the line being the actors, directors, producers, and below the line being really the people that are actually making it. And the idea was to do the show from that point of view, like what is it actually like when you're the person that's got to carry out this strange order to get a tractor in the movie, for instance. Yeah.
It's like Downton Abbey.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
We talked about that. Yeah, upstairs, downstairs, those sorts of things. Yeah, and it's in what's true is Americans. The reason why it's set here is because this is true, right? They shoot lots of franchise movies in the UK, and American producers and studios come here and they shoot with British crews because of tax incentives, and British crews are really good, but there's also financial reasons why, and so there is often a kind of divide between the US contingent and the local European British contingent.
So how much has actually happened, like on the real sets of all the crazy things that we see?
Yeah. I mean, lots of it. So the stories of like actors getting blinded on set, and temporarily losing their vision, people having panic attacks in too many prosthetics. Yeah, the sort of product placement stuff is, that's all real. The stuff about getting a shot into your scene for China is something that really happened, right? It's documented that some of the big franchises have done these things where they include stuff for a Chinese version of the movie because they want a release there, because it means huge box office. So the sort of moral element of that, like what is the studio prepared to do to get a bigger box office? So yeah, lots of it is based on at least a grain of truth.
Do you think that franchise films is death to cinema yourself?
I don't think. I think it's more complicated, and I think they are also cinema themselves, and they are when they're good, they're really good, right? I don't know which of the Spider-Man that you like, but I remember the Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. I remember the Tobey Maguire one was really pretty good, and when they are good, there's something special, right? They're hard, probably the hardest thing to do, and that's why I didn't want to be just shitting on them. And like, we have moments where they do something that's really good, and where they have scenes where it's great, because I do know it's hard. Creating anything is hard, and I didn't want to make a show that was sort of kicking people that are trying to make something. The machine is wrong and malfunctioning, but the people individually are trying to do something good, right? No one's trying to make a bad movie.
No, and there is a lot of heroes, unsung heroes on the
Yes,
ground. So
yeah.
I was thinking about this, the woman problem thing that comes up. There is a little bit of a woman problem, another problems in the franchise films especially, maybe.
Yeah.
So what can you as a screenwriter do to make the industry more equal and inclusive?
Yeah, I guess that was an area that we'd landed on early on that we knew we wanted to write an episode about. It felt like there were that within, for a certain period, there was a while where they seemed to be struggling to connect their female characters to an audience, and then there would be some friction where the audience wouldn't seem to like the way they were going, so then there would be a counter move, and it was just interesting to look at how studios and how big franchises sort of react to their fans, and how much are they leading their fans, or is it fan service. And so that felt like it was always going to be bleed into the show in some way, because I guess fan culture is so baked in, so we needed to reflect that in some way. Yeah.